Most respected, honorable Sri Guru Murti Ji, truly a beautiful pillar of wisdom and leadership for this nation and for the world. My deeply respected, honorable, beloved brother, Sri Gaurang Das Ji Prabhu Ji of the Govardhan Eco Village, and our most respected Sri Vikrant Ji and the entire United Consciousness community. It's such a beautiful joy to be with you. The topic that was so lovingly given to me to speak on is spiritual values for holistic development. Spiritual values for holistic development. Now, when we begin, the very first place we have to begin is even asking ourselves, what do we mean by development? Obviously, everything should be holistic. But when we talk about development, everybody's in favor of development. Let's have development. We need more development. Development is seen as an unequivocal, positive, great thing. But we need to ask ourselves, what type of development are we even talking about? I remember several years ago, I was at a beautiful ashram that at the time was actually just being built by our Puja Swami Ramdev Ji and Puja Charya Balkrishan Ji outside of Haridwar, Yogram, right in the middle of the rural jungle area, and it was beautiful. And as I was leaving from that ashram, we were driving through the rural villages outside of the Haridwar area, and it was just typical Indian village, and outside of some of the houses and shops, you saw people literally sleeping, sitting in chairs. Some of them were on those like makeshift beds, that people use outside, lying on there, sleeping. Beautiful, exactly what our Swami Gauranga Das Ji was speaking about in terms of this family, this wonderful family values. Kids are playing, people are sleeping. And then you turn, and suddenly the roads are covered with asphalt. Suddenly they're much wider. Suddenly there's cemented sidewalks. Suddenly there's big buildings. And it was the industrial area of Haridwar that we had turned into. And everybody's in mostly what looked like Western clothes, carrying briefcases, hustling, bustling across the street, bumping into each other without even noticing. It could have been the streets of New York City or London or Paris or LA. And because I had these two visions within 4 or 5 minutes of each other, it struck me so deeply, because clearly the second picture is what we would call development. Dirt is covered with asphalt, sidewalks are cemented, people have briefcases, nobody's sleeping outside. And yet, I thought, I wonder how many of those people hustling and bustling out of factories, industries, big multinational companies, how many of them have the ability to close their eyes and fall asleep in the middle of the road? Most of us don't even have the ability to fall asleep at night in our own beds without taking some kind of pill. What do we even mean by development? How many people these days are suffering from insomnia? And you think this guy, who we are considering undeveloped, who probably all kinds of organizations are going in to try to bring development to the village. Well, the bold kushe, he's very happy, neen badhiya se aate hai, his sleep comes wonderfully. Middle of the day, in the road, no problem. So we need to really ask ourselves on a deep spiritual level, what do we mean by development? Now, obviously, we need roads. Obviously, we need institutions. We need that type of development. We need jobs. We need industry. And yet, let us be really clear, because what we're seeing today across the world, I come from America. I've had the wonderful blessing of living on the banks of Mother Ganga in Rishikesh for the last 27 years. But you take a country like America, where we've acquired everything, achieved everything, attained everything, and yet, at night, नींद लाने के लिए गोली खानी पड़ती. We have to take medicine to fall asleep at night. Our beds might be made of gold, but sleep doesn't come. And you think, what have we actually achieved? Rates of depression, rates of anxiety, rates of mental illness, rates of suicide are skyrocketing at the same time that we are achieving and acquiring and attaining and building and developing more and more across the world. So we have to be very clear about what do we mean by development. One of the anecdotes on this that I share all the time is back where I'm from in Los Angeles and Hollywood. If you ask almost anyone who's walking out of their car, rich people, successful people, opening the doors of Mercedes, and you say to them, how are you? You get a whole list. This is wrong, that's wrong, this problem, that problem. But you go to the Himalayas, you go to the banks of Mother Ganga, and you ask the lady who's carrying firewood on her head, back to her village to cook the evening meal. How are you? Aap kaise hain? And she says, Bas, Bhagwan ki kripa. It's God's grace. You ask the sweeper on the streets of Rishikesh, kaise hain? Bas, Ma Ganga ki kripa. It's just the blessings of Mother Ganga. So we have to be very clear, what are we considering development? We should not forsake all of that gives us richness and depth and meaning in our lives for that which simply puts money in our bank account or builds us a bigger house. His Holiness the Dalai Lama once said, you could have the penthouse, means the very top floor of the tallest building in the most beautiful city of the world. But if you're depressed, all you're going to be doing is looking for a window out of which you can jump. If we're doing exercises in the gym and we are developing our physical body, we know that we have to do the entire body. No one would say, Acha, just exercise your right side. Let the left side just, stay weak and flabby. Or just exercise your arms, forget about your legs. Any good trainer is going to get you doing right side, left side, arms, legs, core, front, back, because we need rounded development. But currently the vision that most of us in much of the world has of development is a lopsided development. We're talking about external things and buildings, but we're not talking about ourselves. और ये मैंने भारत में आकर देखा कि अमेरिका में, पूरी वेस्ट में वैसे जहाँ जहाँ देखते हैं तो सब कुछ बहुत बड़ा बड़ा लगता है. गाड़ियाँ बड़े बड़े, मकान बड़े बड़े, सड़कें बड़ी बड़ी, everything is big. लेकिन भारत में आकर मैंने ये देखा कि बड़ा होना कोई जरूरी नहीं है, बल्कि बढ़िया होना चाहिए. और यही संस्कृति, this culture, this is why development is not always moving forward, sometimes it's moving back. And the development that we need today is a development that on some level moves back to our traditional teachings, ethics, values, morals, what we call Bhartiya Sanskriti, this culture that reminds us of who we are and how to navigate in the world. And of course, if you look at yoga, our Dr. H.R. Nagendraji is here. If we look at yoga, well, you just take the 8 limbs of yoga and it's perfect development. From ethics to enlightenment, from yam and niyam up to samadhi. How do you develop yourself? How do you develop in your relationships? How do you develop your body? And how do you develop more and more subtly your deep awareness so that we reach that state of actual union? This isn't anti-science. A lot of people ask me, well, but what about science? Well, I'm a scientist by heart. My academic background is pediatric neuropsychology. I'm a scientist. I was in the midst of getting my PhD when I came to India 27 years ago. I love science. Nothing I am saying is anti-science. Science is fantastic, as long as we don't turn to it for happiness, peace, meaning in life, or fulfillment. And that is where the science and the spirituality needs to go together. Science takes us to outer space. It's wonderful. On the moon, on Mars, in space. But we need our spirituality, we need our yoga, we need our Sanskriti for our world of inner space and our world of intraspace, that relation world that Gaurang Das Ji was speaking about so beautifully. What are those spiritual principles? So just quickly, I'll go through a few of them. Number 1, wisdom is more important than education. Yes, we need education. But I can tell you, as someone who's got a degree from Stanford University, one of the world's top universities, that even though I thought after graduating from Stanford that I knew everything, I didn't know anything. I had a lot of book knowledge. I was very good at taking exams. But Jivan ke baare mein, I had no idea. Who I am, no idea. Nature of the universe, no idea. We need real wisdom. Abhi Vinay Sahasrabudhi ji was speaking about education versus wisdom and how you get wisdom that Yudhishthira told us so beautifully is in the association of the wise ones. There's a beautiful saying that says, Manushyatvam mumukshotvam maha purush sanshaya. And this is considered the highest goal. Number 1, a human birth. Number 2, a quest for knowledge. And number 3, the association with the holy ones. That's where our wisdom comes. I know for me, I was living by what I now call a Hollywood mindset, which sadly doesn't exist only in Hollywood. But the mindset is one that says you are your body. You are its size, its shape, its color, its bank account, its profession, its ranking on the social status, its history. That's who you are. And when we identify like that, we suffer. We suffer greed, we suffer lust, we suffer experiences of not enoughness, we suffer jealousy, we suffer competition. The Himalayan way, the Himalayan mindset, which I learned coming to India, is that which teaches us you have a body, but you're not the body. You are soul, you are spirit. And that is the journey from suffering to the end of suffering. And that teaching is what's so critical, is that mindset shift from Hollywood way of thinking to the Himalayan way of thinking, from education to wisdom. We also need the awareness of who we are, inseparable from each other, inseparable from the universe. This is where we're taught Aham Brahmasmi. Soham, all of these beautiful mool mantras that we teach in meditation. It reminds us, I am not separate. I am one with the divine. I am not my body. I'm not my weight. I'm not my bank account. I'm not what someone tweeted about me. Neetu, everybody's mood is all off these days because what somebody tweeted, what somebody commented. I am not that. I am soul. I am spirit. We need a commitment to diving into the yoga of Gyan Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, as Bhagawan Krishna gives so beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita. That wisdom that we get through self-study, through association with the wise ones, that then blossoms into love. And love is the energy that makes everything possible. There's a beautiful line that we sing every night at Paramarth Nikatan in the Ganga Arati that says, Sabse unchi prem sagai. The highest form of love is love for the divine. That bhakti, that ras of bhakti, that juicy ras of bhakti is what brings that joy and meaning to our lives. And then Karma Yoga, how we move through the world, how we live, the choices that we make, living in ahimsa, living in integrity, doing whatever we can to bring about that Ram Raja, that era of, that reign of righteousness, goodness, integrity, equality, love. And we need to be focused on our Dharma. What is our Dharma? Not how can I steal what someone else has, not how can I push myself forward, not what for me, but what through me. And lastly, we need this beautiful teaching of our scriptures around sustainability. If we don't have a sustainable planet, nothing else matters. We must live sustainably. There's a beautiful teaching in the Upanishads that says, Isha vasyamidam sarvam, yat kincha jagatyam jagat, tena tyaktena bhunjita, ma gritaha kasya svidhanam. And what it teaches us in closing is everything in this universe is pervaded by the divine. First of all, that means you. You are not separate from the divine. You are not stupid or weak or ugly or worthless or all of the things that we think about ourselves. You are divine. But so is all of those around you. The human beings, all beings. Therefore, be very careful how you live, because nothing belongs to you. This earth is not a resource. It is not something to use and abuse and discard. This earth is sacred. And since the earth is sacred, we care for it. We live with that love, with that care, with these teachings that our Sanskriti gave us. So, in closing, as we develop more and more in science, in technology, in commerce, in all of these beautiful external ways, we develop internally by actually going back to the truth of who we are and to these beautiful cultural values of our Sanskriti. Actually, just lastly, one last line I wanted to mention as I'm looking at Dr. Nagendraji is that yoga, this science and teaching of union and oneness, and also that united consciousness is so dedicated to, is actually the answer to everything that ails us today. From the depression, to the anxiety, to the addiction, to the divorce, to the conflict in families, to the conflict in societies, to the war, to the climate change. Yoga and oneness and unity is the answer, because all of that has one core cause: the myth of separation. When I feel separate from the divine, separate from myself, separate from others, we suffer and we bring suffering on the planet. When through yoga, through consciousness, we reunite, we bring healing to ourselves and our planet. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity to be with you today.